The Night of the Seven Kingdoms just ended, and the finale, like the rest of the season, managed to surprise me. So I want to talk about this ending and whether or not the twist worked, and why I think that this show is the perfect missing piece in the greater story of the Song of Ice and Fire. A little later, I'm going to be joined by two Ice and Fire experts to explain where we go from here, but first, here's why I think this works so well. See, this show stands out because its story is about joy, and how specifically joy can persist through sorrow. Now, at a distance, this might seem antithetical to the story that George R.R. Martin is telling. Rather than construct a typical fantasy story about good versus evil, Martin's always sought to portray the nuances of human existence. Not everybody is all good or all bad. I mean, everybody believes that they are the hero of their own story. But so often in Game of Thrones, we only see the dark side of the human race. Some of the most vile characters ever on screen are in this franchise. But this isn't because George is saying that all human beings are inherently evil. The overarching theme of this series is that power will corrupt absolutely. When any person is given too much power, they naturally detach themselves from the rest of the human race, and they start to believe that they are akin to gods who are above everyone else. This is what caused the downfall of the Targaryens. When they rode dragons, everybody believed the Targaryens were more than men. But after the dragons died out, they were the only people who continued to believe this about themselves. So, in this universe, terrible things do happen to other people, but this dark side of humanity almost always comes from powerful people who are seeking more power. But in this franchise, we also see the reverse. As soon as characters stop seeking power and trying to gain control, they become happier. My favorite example is Alicent Hightower. As soon as she decides that she wants to end the war, she starts wearing her favorite color again, blue, instead of the colors of her father's house, green. This is because she has finally achieved a measure of peace. And Night of the Seven Kingdoms is a joyful, optimistic show because the powerful people are kept to the margins and we primarily focus on Dunk and lesser lords. Dunk is dumb, he's innocent, and his charm attracts good people to him. Simply by being a good person, he wins the respect of Lionel and Baelor and the friendship of Raymond. Dunk, unlike almost every other character in this universe, actually has the courage to believe in a better tomorrow. This show hits me harder in the feels than an epic like House of the Dragon, even though it's got a lower budget and no dragons. Author Jason Pargin had a strong observation about House of the Dragon in the original show. See, the original series had character pairings that were mismatched and so they were fun to watch. Arya and the Hound, Tyrion and Varys, etc. But House of the Dragon doesn't have that kind of character chemistry. It is telling a tragic story about how sexism and class structure destroyed the relationship between two women and caused the downfall of House Targaryen. There's just not a lot of joy in that premise, and that's okay. But this show does have that kind of character chemistry, especially between Dunk and Egg. Peter Claffey and Dexter Sol Ansel were encouraged to spend time together in real life, and their chemistry shows.
I kicked his ass in Mario Kart so many times. Make sure they say that. I kicked his ass in Mario Kart. And I was Princess Peach.
It's a classic pairing because each of them has something that the other lacks. Dunk has size and no brains. Egg is little and clever. Dunk has experience and honor, while Egg is learning how to be a man. So the core theme of this franchise, that power corrupts, is always at play in the background of Night of the Seven Kingdoms. See, the true purpose of this story in the grand saga is not to show two people becoming best buds, it's to turn Egg into a man who is fit to rule. So one day, he can save the world from ice zombies. And this is where I want to talk about how this show is actually the key to understanding the rest of Game of Thrones. But all of that starts with this series. So Doug, what do you think of that?
Not now, person. I am earning money.
Sweet, carry on. Guys, I actually learned something recently. The majority of ScreenCrush viewers watch us on your televisions, and if you're like me, then you leave the TV on while you're on your phone. Personally, I like to play games on my phone.
Me too.
Right, and we just found a way that we can play games and earn money by using Snacksy. They're the sponsor of this video. You will not believe how easy it is to play games and make money. You pick a game that you want to play, and then you choose how you want your rewards delivered, like Amazon, Apple, or even money straight into your PayPal account, and then you start playing. And if you click our link below, you get a sign-up bonus worth up to $10. Guys, this is such a simple way to use your downtime to earn these rewards. All you have to do is play, complete tasks, and earn coins, and then you cash in those Snacksy coins to earn rewards from brands that you actually use, like gift cards from Amazon, Netflix, Uber Eats, Visa, or if you're a gamer, you can redeem for any of these platforms. Snacksy features puzzle games, farming games, RPG, action, horror, and loads more. I have been playing the Grand Mafia, where you navigate the underworld to take control of a crime family. Now, that $10 sign-up bonus is available through my link below, so grab it while it's still live. Just click that link to get started today. Now, back to what I was saying. See, in House of the Dragon, it's revealed that the only reason Aegon conquered the Seven Kingdoms was because he had a prophetic dream. He saw the ice zombies coming and a vision that his heir would rally the Seven Kingdoms to stop them. So he began his pursuit of power with a noble purpose, which he inscribed on this dagger. Now, the dagger becomes a symbol of this prophecy, and a symbol of why the Targaryens have this awesome power to control dragons. See, I think that this power was granted to them through blood magic that was granted by the Lord of Light. That's the god that Melisandre worships in Game of Thrones. The Lord of Light also wants to stop the ice zombies. However, over the years, the Targaryen dynasty was corrupted by outsiders like Otto Hightower, who only wanted to be near the throne for the sake of power and not for a noble purpose. And after the Civil War, the Dance of Dragons, the purpose of Aegon's dagger is forgotten and the dagger is lost. And this is when the dragons began to die out. So Egg becomes king years after this show. Baelor's heir Valar dies in a flu epidemic. Then Egg's brother Daeron gets an STD, Aerion drinks gasoline, and Aemon swears off the throne to join the Night's Watch. So then Egg was called Aegon the Unlikely because he is the fourth son of a fourth son. So a very specific series of events had to occur to get him on the Iron Throne. Then his son, Aerys the Mad King, takes the throne and has 3 kids, Rhaegar, Viserys, and of course Daenerys. Rhaegar has a child with Lyanna Stark that they name Aegon. Technically, when Rhaegar died, Jon became heir to the Iron Throne. He would be Aegon the 6th or the 7th, it's complicated. So this is right when the Lord of Light allowed dragons to be reborn into the world and controlled by the Targaryens, because the time was coming to save the world from ice zombies. And of course, if you saw Game of Thrones, you know, Jon does rally the kingdoms to defeat the White Walkers and save the world. But then, in keeping with the theme of this series, Daenerys was corrupted by absolute power and, etc., etc. But all of that starts with this series. See, Baelor's heirs might not have produced the right conditions for the return of dragons or to stop the Long Night. But because Aegon spent time with Dunk and the common folk, he grows up to be a kind king. And perhaps he passed some of that kindness on to his great-grandchildren. But now I'm joined here by 2 ice and fire experts and 2 of my favorite people in the world. We have Cameron Caskey, the intern we fire at the end of every episode, and of course Darren Robinson from the Second City. Darren, man, I haven't seen you since House of the Dragon times. It's great to have you back on. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Thanks for having me back.
Well, I want to start by getting just your thoughts on the episode from both of you before we talk about where this fits in the larger Thrones lore and also the House of the Dragon trailer that just came out. Darren, what did you think about this finale and I guess the series as a whole?
I loved this finale. This was a much quieter episode. I noticed there were a lot of scenes with just 2 people speaking with each other. It felt almost like a stage play a little bit. And overall, I think it reflected the tone of the series, which was overall quieter and more heartfelt and had a little bit more humor than I think the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon as well. I think it was just a really soft place to land at the end of, especially following an incredibly tumultuous battle that happened and a tragic battle that happened in the previous episode. And I think it sets us up really well for the next season. Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of fans who get mad about this episode because, very little happens that progresses the plot much. It's very much an episode about the characters sitting in the results of the climax of the season and sort of, recognizing the way that the world is kind of changing here, because everything in Westeros felt like it was kind of on a steady path at the time. Yes, the Blackfire Rebellion shook things up, but King Daeron the Good, who I think appeared in the episode without a spoken line. I think he's at the funeral. Yeah. I think he's at the funeral with his wife, Miriam Martell, which Daeron...
If that's not his wife, it could be his sister. We went through in the breakdown because she's got gray hair, which, she might have had by that point. But she looked like a Targaryen to me.
I wonder why Miria didn't go to... She must have. That's her son.
I think he was dead at this point. No?
Oh, I'm sorry. R.I.P. Queen.
R.I.P. Queen.
Daeron the Good married Miriam Martell and brought Dorne into the Seven Kingdoms, not through conquest, but through marriage, which is, one of the reasons he's remembered as Daeron the Good. But all this is to say, it felt like things were on a steady path. The Targaryen power was waning. People were turning against the Targaryens, but generally speaking, public opinion on Prince Baelor was pretty positive. Right. So now the order of
with
things.
his cute David Bowie eyes. He's got two eyes that are different colors.
And I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, I think what happened was one of the actors between him and his son Valar, one of them was wearing a contact to match the others. Yeah. So now the order of things has been shaken up a bit, and the characters are sort of recognizing that there's sort of a big shift in the order of things, and the relationship the public is going to have with House Targaryen is definitely going to be changing even more, whether it's for the better or worse. So
I agree. I agree with that. I think that the Targaryens were always seen as being like different and alien from the rest of Westeros. People call them aliens all the time and foreigners, and I feel like that claim held some water because they used to ride dragons, but now that the dragons are all dead, people are seeing them as just different and not in a good way.
And they inbreed, and there's all these other things about them that are just completely different from the culture of Westeros. Where, by the way, I should point out, they're all aliens. They all came over on the Arm of Dorne. I don't see any children of the forest running around. So I'm just saying, they're all immigrants in Westeros.
Right.
Including the Andals, who kind of, from a historical perspective, just got there. But,
True.
Yeah.
And forced religion on the masses, just saying.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that happened here, and I think it actually might be one of the most dramatic changes from the original book, is Egg's decision to just follow Dunk anyway. Because
I was going to ask you guys about this.
I was going to point that out.
I was curious if you thought that was the subtext in the book, because when I read the novella, I completely missed the subtext that Dunk was never actually knighted. So I read that and I thought, oh, did I miss the subtext that Egg disobeyed his dad? Because his dad never says it in the novella. He never says, okay, you can go with him. He just walks away.
I think it's assumed in the novella that he's allowed to go just because we don't see that scene. But I think what I like about the show is that it makes it really clear that actually he just runs away, which is kind of a bold move and very true to form. And I like that it's a cute little twist at the end of the episode, because it's like there's this beautiful music that swells and you see like the ghost of Sir Arlen riding with them for a bit and then going left, and it's just seems like a beautiful moment. And then afterwards Maker's like, where the F is Egg? So
followed by 16 tons, which I also thought was a great addition. Cam, what do you think? Was this the subtext in the book or not? Or did they add this in?
I mean, I think they definitely made a big choice to make a thing of it here in a way that I don't remember it as a very memorable part of the book, and I could be misremembering, but I don't think the point of the ending was any major disobedience from Egg in that decision. I felt like the point of the ending was sort of this reconciliation with Dunk realizing that even if he doesn't feel ready to become this mentor figure, that's what he is now. And that's one of the big themes in this story, is just, the nature of growing up, and something that I talk about, not to bring in another geek thing, but I talk about this with Peter B. Parker in Into the Spider-Verse. I feel like one of the themes that appears in both Into and Across the Spider-Verse between Peter B. Parker and Jefferson Morales, who was renamed from Jefferson Davis because that's the name of a famous Confederate general. In the books, he's named Jefferson Davis for some reason. But this idea that you never become ready to be an adult, and you are never fully a man grown. Adulthood is about the choices that you make. Adulthood is about what you do when there's a fork in the road ahead of you. And I know a lot of children who have made very adult decisions, and I know a lot of adults who have made very childish decisions. And I feel like what happens to Dunk at the end of this story is him realizing that he's in a position now where he's stepping into the shoes of Sir Arlen, and he isn't ready, but he's never going to be ready. And it's different for him because Sir Arlen took Dunk in at a very old age. Dunk started squiring for Sir Arlen when Arlen was already a seasoned guy. Dunk in this story is somewhere in his 20s. I mean, in the book, he's about 16, 17 years old.
He's like 17 in the book, yeah.
Yeah. In this story, he's about 26 is my guess, because in the flashback, it looks like he's maybe 14 years old. And if you dissect the timeline a little bit from how far away this is from the Blackfire Rebellion, it seems like Dunk is probably in his mid-20s here. And he isn't...
Just like in the main novels, they shifted the timeline to make the characters a little bit older.
George sucks at age, but beside that, George is actually really bad with numbers overall. In A Game of Thrones, the first book, the prize for winning the Hand's Tourney, the big tourney to celebrate Ned Stark being named Hand, is 40,000 gold dragons. And then in The Hedge Knight, which was written right after A Game of Thrones, 1 gold dragon is enough to buy a horse and food for one person for like a year. So Sandor...
Well, no wonder the joust was going to bankrupt the realm. I mean, look at inflation.
Maybe it's inflation.
No. What 1 gold dragon does from A Game of Thrones to the later books is just completely inconsistent when it comes to the size of armies, all these different things. George is bad at counting. It doesn't matter. He's one of the greatest of all time. He doesn't need to be good at counting. It's a great emotional story. But besides the sort of Dunk maybe feeling a little too unprepared to take in this squire, there's also this thing that the decision Arlen makes to save Dunk and get involved with the fight that killed Rafe in the last episode. I think it threads this needle that was there in the books, but I think it does a little bit more to solidify it, of the knight who remembers their vows. Because Arlen goes in and protects the innocent. And what was this that caused this giant trial by 7 that killed Prince Baelor? It was Dunk being the knight who remembered his vows to protect the innocent.
Exactly. And the resemblance between Tansel and Rafe, too.
So it was
it was deeply trauma.
I noticed that.
It was right after, and it was a different thing. Dunk's decision to chew that guy's neck off with Rafe was motivated by the fact that they were these probably lovers and they had this pre-existing thing, whereas the Tansel situation, yes, he had a little bit of feelings for her, but they had a very different emotional relationship. Again, it was about a knight remembering his vows.
Well, in the book, I think it's actually made a little bit more clear how much of a crush he has on her.
Definitely.
Like in the book, like as soon as he enters the tourney, it's like he's looking at her and noticing her, and whenever she's in like his vicinity, he's always noticing her, and then he has to actively tell himself like, nope, you're here to be a knight. You're here to be a knight. Stop looking at the puppet girl. So I think that's
a lot more horny in the book in general.
He's way more horny in the book. And I think, also that comes from him being 17 in the book. He's a teenager. Right. He's just a horny teenager. But also it's kind of implied towards the end of the book when they decide to go to Dorne, because that's where Tansel escaped to, is to Dorne. Right. So likely he's just following his puppet girl crush. But that doesn't take away, Cameron, from the fact that he is trying to protect the innocent. But I do think that there is a romantic aspect to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to believe that the Dunk we know in the story would not have defended someone he didn't have a crush on. And that's why I think the ambiguity of that is part of George's story. I think George wants us to kind of think about the gray area here of like, he does have a crush on her, but he also is a knight who remembered his vows. And he does practice chivalry. And I think that, I don't want to say contradiction, but that those two things at odds with each other is George writing 101. But all this is to say, there is this parallel where Arlen took this squire in right after making this dramatic move to defend this innocent woman from the evils of this world. And now Dunk has done the same thing that Arlen did when he went in to stop this Rafe situation. And now he supposes he's ready to take Egg in. And he makes this decision to sort of be a little bit more like Arlen, because when Egg calls him Duncan at the end, he corrects him. He's like, oh, that's Sir Duncan. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
All right, Dunk's a knight.
And he's like, and I don't want to catch you on Thunder unless I put you there. Like he's like, Chestnut is for you, Thunder's for me.
And he'll never actually give him a clout in the ear either. That's the thing about Dunk. Like, he is kind of all talk. At least he never does in the book. There's also this thing that, the ending, one thing I thought about, it was like, now it does change the story they're telling, where now it's very much a story about the Targaryens looking for the runaway prince. And I wonder how that's going to affect, if we want to get into a little bit of spoilers, season 2, but especially season 3, if they follow the novellas we have with the Mystery Knight, which has the Third Blackfire Rebellion, where the Targaryens and specifically Brendan Rivers are very much a part of it. Do you guys think this is do you like this as a new plot line where we're going to have the target, like them evading Targaryens or at least Aegon evading them?
Well, I think it was necessary in a way because while I'm very sick of Targaryens just from House of the Dragon, and I want more stories in Westeros where I don't have to sit around with these Targaryens anymore, not a lot happens in The Sworn Sword. It's very much a story about
it's a water dispute. It's a water rights.
It really
dispute
is. It's
in
water
the
rights.
Reach.
It's Chinatown.
They're dealing with this Sir Eustace this night and Lady Rohan Weber, and it's a smaller story on a smaller scale. So I think it works as an interesting C plot, to have them also kind of looking for Egg.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
And you can have some Kingsguard doing it, which Kingsguard going on searches for people is something that happens in the books. In A Feast for Crows, you have Eris Oakheart in Dorne. You have there are examples of Kingsguard getting sent on these sort of almost hopeless ventures to
Wild
rescue.
Goose Chase.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, Brienne of Tarth spends the entire Feast for Crows in a Wild Goose Chase, and a lot of people recite that as their least favorite part of the books. And it's like, no, man, if you read it, it's this great story about gender and identity and all these different things.
And how you can say that when Tyrion's drunk on a boat for an entire book, I don't know, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The people romanticize Tyrion in A Dance with Dragons because young Griff is so cool, but that's another conversation. But I think that doing a Kingsguard looking for Egg story would be a good way to provide more material so we don't pad out the Sworn Sword story with a bunch of conversations that don't necessarily push the plot forward. I also think that it might be a way to get Roland Craycall involved, because Roland Craycall is one of the Kingsguard who fights in the Trial by Seven.
Yeah,
in season
and
1.
he got a little moment with Dunk in this episode, and he's never really visited since then, except for when Egg tells him his dad is really rich. He basically tries to look at him and say, well, I could become like that, when in fact, no, you still need connections.
Well, and Roland Craycall comes back in the third story, The Mystery Knight, and you find out that he is very much beholden to Brynden Rivers' Bloodraven. He is Bloodraven's man. And that's why I talked about the theory I subscribed to in our last episode that Baelor Breakspear was murdered. I think he was murdered not by Maekar, because Maekar doesn't even remember the swing that killed his brother. I think Roland Craycall killed him at the behest of Bloodraven. Because the thing is,
it's so interesting you say that, because it's like what Lionel Baratheon says at the very beginning of the episode. It's like the prince went against men who were sworn to protect him. He was not risking his life, which heavily implies that it was a murder and that they were able to easily cover up this murder by saying it was Maekar. And also the sadness that Maekar has to live with. I mean, this is something that he lives with for the rest of his life. Even when he later becomes king, is the whispers that he's a kinslayer, which is one of the worst things that someone could ever call you in this universe. But yeah, I agree. I think it was a cover up. I think it was a convenient way to kill him without getting caught. And then Lionel Baratheon also hints that, there's a war coming and
no shit, your great grandson will kick that war off. Why would Brynden Rivers want him dead?
Well, because he's a Targaryen that isn't obsessed with the same prophecies Bloodraven's obsessed with. Bloodraven is a Greenseer. He has the blood of the First Men and the Targaryens in him. People like to talk about how Jon Snow is this magical hero that's going to save the entire world. And by the way,
Brynden Rivers, who's Hand of the King and goes on to become the Three-Eyed Raven, just for everybody.
He goes on to become the Three-Eyed Raven, who is much more interesting a character than he is in Game of Thrones in the books. Brynden Rivers is obsessed with prophecy. He's obsessed with the Targaryen prophecy and with what will be the war against the others, or excuse me, the White Walkers. And Baelor Breakspear, his son Valar, again, there's just this thing where somehow dark-haired Targaryens are always kept off the throne. Whether it's Baelor Breakspear, whether it's Valar, whether it's
Rhaenys, the queen who never was. In House the Dragon, they make the actress blonde, but in the books, Rhaenys has dark hair because her mother was... her mother was Jocelyn Baratheon. And so Rhaenys has dark hair and she's the queen who never was. And so that's another parallel to that.
There's these two very important things about that, which number one, her having dark hair but indisputably being a Targaryen calls into question the notion that the Valerian kids, Jace, Luke, and the others are gonna be certainly bastards just because they have dark hair. Because Rhaenyra is with Laenor. They both have the Valyrian features, and their children, while there's absolutely no sign that they are biracial, and that is not something from the books, they don't have the Valyrian hair. And that's,
but in the books, they can excuse it by being like, "Oh, their grandmother has the dark Baratheon hair, so maybe it just skipped a generation."
Well, so that's
plausible
and
deniability
there's
there.
none of that. You cannot begin to excuse it. Like Viserys looks like an
Baratheon,
idiot because of that in the series.
Baratheon sperm being so strong that no Baratheon can have anything other than black hair is like,
I mean, that's
the
like
main
the book.
plot point.
That's
Game of Thrones, where it's like hair of black, and then Joffrey is blonde, and then and then he's like, hold up. Ned Stark's like, wait a minute, hair of black. Why is there a blonde Baratheon?
Yeah, George R. R. Martin science is that your kids are going to have your hair color. Generally speaking, no questions asked. George
only if they're Baratheons, though. I mean, look, man, you got to admit those are some strong swimmers that carry that.
That's like
DNA sequence.
That's the thing that the entire Song of Ice and Fire saga, at least the one that starts with the Game of Thrones, is predicated on. Is like, oh my god, the Baratheon sperm is just invincible. Like even the Lannisters, and every Lannister is blonde, so they have some pretty strong Lannister sperm as well. Still, no, definitely black hair. All this is to say, Queen Rhaenys having the black hair, it makes the suggestion that the Velaryons are inherently bastards, which they obviously are, a little bit shakier. And also, I don't think George was going to write a Baratheon who didn't have black hair. But all this is to say, it's just magically every heir to the Iron Throne with dark hair is kept off. And I do think there's something a little suspicious there. I don't know what exactly, but you do have this sense that whoever is controlling, whoever is the puppeteer of all these events throughout the story, does want to keep Targaryens who are not obsessed with this sort of Valyrian supremacist prophecy off the throne. And I think putting Roland Crakehall in season 2 is them sowing the seeds for what will be a bigger Bloodraven story in season 3.
I love
and most
that.
likely
I love
beyond.
the idea of Crakehall as like an egg hunter that they're subtly trying to avoid. He can be this presence who's sort of there, or maybe even like in the background watching over them. It could be as simple as that, where Maekar sends him off thinking that he's going to find him. And in fact, I love the idea and that he is actually Brendan's man. One awesome thing I'm loving about this show and House of the Dragon is the subtext. It's the subtext and other things that historical record didn't know that we're getting to learn. Like earlier, I talked about Aegon's dagger and why he conquered the Seven Kingdoms and how that makes so much sense for this story. And in the same way, everything that happens here, if it was orchestrated by Brendan Rivers, does lead down this cause and effect path that creates Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen and ends the Long Night. Like, I like this clockwork kind of universe that we're looking at because, I mean, we've seen in the show that time travel there's not causality. Hodor was called Hodor because he was always called Hodor because Bran always did that to him. Darren, what are you seeing here, like in terms of comparing this show maybe to the original later seasons of the original show or House of the Dragon? Where are you thinking this stacks up, and especially with how it fits in the rest of the universe?
Yeah, I think my immediate thought when I first started watching the series, like earlier episodes, was, wow, okay, this is like kind of cozy. It's like a little bit more cozy than the other ones. But I do, as the season went on, you start to see like, okay, this is setting the stage for Game of Thrones. It's setting up the decline of House Targaryen, seeing like even after House of the Dragon. And that, I think it's a human story. That's what I like about it. I think more than House of the Dragon, it's about just relationships. And that's something I think that was really missing for me from House of the Dragon, is that even though it's a great show, it's such a grand scale and the stakes are so high and it's such a tragic story that it's missing that like spark of humor and like people talking to each other and like relationships and stuff that Game of Thrones had, because you had like weird matchups like Arya and the Hound, and you had like Tyrion and Varys and these cute little, you know, duos who would hang out together. And I feel like Dunk and Egg are very much like that. So you get those humorous moments.
Tyrion and Bronn.
Yeah, exactly. You have like just great little dynamic duos. And I feel like this show is bringing some of that back. Yeah.
And another thing, House of the Dragon, I'm not going to get too into slamming House of the Dragon. It has its strengths, it has its weaknesses. It's an utterly humorless show, and humor is a big thing for George R. R. Martin.
Yeah.
By design, it's an utterly humorless show, and it's also just an aromantic show. Like it's an unrequited love show. I mean, I think Alicent and Rhaenyra, that's a sapphic love story. It's very, very, very under the surface. But yeah, no, all they wanted to do was ride around, be gay and ride around on dragons and have adventures and be gay together. And they couldn't have that because of their asshole fathers. So,
yep.
No comment.
Go ahead, Cameron.
No comment. I will say there are a lot of people in the online fandom who are loving House of the Dragon, who are loving Night of Seven Kingdoms, because it's this story that is just all men, basically. I mean, this book does not pass the Bechdel test. They had to add these scenes with Rowan, the sex worker. They had to expand.
By the way, Rowan, the extremely smart sex worker. Good for her.
Incredibly smart.
Oh, yeah. Adding
Good
that thing
for
with her
her
and Fossaway was really fun.
I hope that when he brings her home, you know, they don't consider her a rotten apple.
No. The thing with like the novella has pretty much, I mean, zero women at all except for Tansel Tootal, and I think a lot of guys who are very against the feminism, or in my opinion, you know, attempt at feminism in House of the Dragon, they're really excited about Night of the Seven Kingdoms because they see it as this very masculine story. And I'm like, if you know George's work, if you know who he is and how he writes, George is like a radical feminist. Like radical feminist sci-fi authors were the people who first inspired him when he was a younger writer in the 80s. So Game of Thrones, not just House of the Dragon, which again, I think that the politics of it are interesting and occasionally contradictory. The Ice and Fire story is so much critique of the patriarchy. That's at the center of pretty much every single corner of this story. Even Cersei, who in the books is just this raging misogynist, you know, you see how it is very much the result of the patriarchal misogynist feudal system. So I'm excited for them to see season 2 and see that the second main character in season 2 is a total girl boss slay queen, because they're going to be
Lady
like,
Rohan.
they're
With a
putting
6-foot-long braid she can hit people with.
Yeah, they're putting woke in the story. It's like, sorry, this was written 20 years ago. They hadn't invented woke by then. Whoops.
Well,
Get over it.
They hadn't co-opted woke by then.
They hadn't co-opted
woke.
woke. I also feel like, to that end too, this story I think is really special because it shows how masculinity can be shown in different ways. And in a way, like the relationship between Dunk and Egg is so like gentle and like nurturing, and not like hardcore and everything, kind of like other male relationships. And so in a way they're like embodying almost these like feminine characteristics and showing that in that way. So
I mean, two of the biggest badasses on the show are like a little fruity. Like Lionel Baratheon is a badass, and Lionel Baratheon's
his little earring and the way he dances
just throws
like, he's
gay vibes at Dunk.
So
I did
gay.
not pick that up in first viewing. I watched it with my wife.
God.
I was like,
I mean, even
gay.
in this one where he's like, come to Storm's End, I'll love you like a brother. It's like, well, in the
or
Game
I'll
of
hate you
Thrones
like
universe,
a brother, whichever way you like it. Yeah,
in the Game of Thrones universe,
somebody
being a brother does not bar them from someone you have a sexual relationship with. And then Raymond Fossaway, I don't know. I think Raymond Fossaway has a little bit of a crush on Dunk. Like, he's always kind of following
How could you not? I mean, the dude, he's cute and tall and strong and has those big doe eyes. I mean, who can? Plus, if you watch the making of, you know the actor's great at Mario Kart. Guys, we do have to leave it there. I'm really sorry. I could do this all day. But thanks so much. Darren, where can people find your information and you?
You can just find me at Darren_to-dream. And you can find me at Second City if you're in Chicago.
And Cameron, what about you, ma'am?
Don't look for me.
Honestly, you'll only be disappointed. In fact, that reminds me, Cameron, you're fired. So
Yeah.
guys, thanks so much. We want to know what you thought of the episode. You can let us know down in the comments below, or at us on Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, or our free to join Discord server, or you can find me on Substack. Cameron's on there too if you want to look for him there. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.